Hey, good morning. Well, it's my morning. I'm out here, enjoying the view again. Somebody said this view is rubbish. Okay, if this view is rubbish, show me where you're at. This morning I'm going to talk travel again. I'm going to talk about the nuts and bolts of travel while I go for a walk. I'm not good at the walk and talk, so, suffer through it or punch out. But I want to talk about how to pack, where to go, where to stay, and how I decide where to go and where to stay. And the hungry bear concept of travel, right? The hungry bear concept of travel, to me, is the funniest thing in the world because, one morning I was sitting there laying in this hotel, the sun's rising, and it's just a beautiful morning. I'm trying to figure out where to go, and there's this nature thing on TV about bears. And it was the funniest thing because I realized I'm like the hungry bear traveler, right? In fact, I even thought about changing my name to that because it was just so funny to me, right? The hungry bear traveler. And so what do I mean by that? Where I choose to go and when I choose to go, I'm like a hungry bear. I'm just looking for the tastiest option that's the easiest. When I say easiest, I mean easiest in financially and logistically and, stress-wise, right? I'm not out here trying to travel to high-stress places. I see these people going to Pakistan or Iraq or, the Durian Gap or, let me see how tough I can be and, do this. It's like, I'm not into that, I'm into the other side of that. I'm into the opposite of that. I look for places that are cheap. I look for places that are friendly. I look for places that are easy. And I don't like to drive much anymore, because it saves me a lot of money. So that's the other factor. But in that, I will double down on the Philippines being a great first place for a first trip, or a great place for a first trip. Your first trip abroad, I would definitely say, the Philippines, if you're thinking about being an expat or nomad and not just a vacationer, I would say the Philippines is a great option for you. If you plan on just doing vacations, in my mind, it now becomes the what, not the where. What do you want to do on vacation? Honestly, if you just want to lay up in a nice hotel room and have a staycation, I'm sure there's other places that are great, but it's going to sound silly. Vegas is like if you're an American, Vegas is like one of the best staycation spots because you inevitably go downstairs and you can find whatever food you want. You can get whatever you want. And, there's tons of loungy, restful things to do. Just hit it, on an off week. Just, pick your times well. So it's not crazy. It's not full of crazy people. And that's a great staycation spot. And there's millions of others. The smaller the better in my mind for staycations, for just sitting around and lounging. And my perspective, there's no real reason to leave the U.S. to have that type of vacation. But if you want to learn to travel, you want to learn to be an expat, you want to learn to be a nomad, and you're going to take an exploratory trip to check it out, I still think the Philippines is one of the best places. And I haven't heard an argument for another place that's coherent. I've heard people say they like this place better, they like that place better, and I appreciate that. But when I say that, I'm not saying that just superficially. So one of the reasons why the Philippines is a great first place, if you want to be a nomad or an expat, is it's a long ways away. You have to spend a lot of time to get there. It's not going to Mexico, And when you get there, it's not the easiest place in the world. It's not like going to Vegas where you just order an Uber, although it's getting there. It's, with Grab, it's getting pretty good. But I'm sorry, I'm not showing you the beautiful stuff. So, I got this mic. I keep forgetting I can turn the camera around and still talk. But when you get to the Philippines, it's going to be a little tough. There's going to be challenges. Some of the food is going to be challenging, right? Some of the people are going to be challenging. People are going to be yelling at you all the time. Sir, sir, sir. But if you watch the Filipina Pea, she just did a video where she's interviewing a guy, and he brings up one of the points that I really appreciate is, look at this guy, that you can easily find people to talk to, chat with, interact with, and it ends up being like this is cool little clock. It ends up being like, a group trip for a single traveler. And that's one of the benefits that a lot of people in the Philippines, or a lot of people that talk about the Philippines, don't discuss, is you can go down there as a single traveler, as a solo, and jump onto a tour, whether it's a waterfall tour or a bus tour or whatever, and you have instant friends, because that's the type of people the Philippines attracts. Now, sometimes you'll get overrun by, a group of whatever, but the majority of the time, I'd just jump on a boat tour as a single. At the end of the tour, I had friends. Some I stayed in touch with for years. And others, we had a beer that night and went our ways. But it's just a great place, because as a single person, you're never going to be lonely. These guys are going crazy. And unless you want to be, right? Where other countries you go, you don't have it's not as easy to get out and meet strangers. You have to put a lot of more work and effort into it. And let's go back to the hungry bear. I'm about what's easy, what's convenient, and what's affordable, right? And what's tasty. What's tasty about the Philippines to me is the boat tours. I love snorkeling. Look at the street doggies. I love the boat tours. I love island hopping. I love snorkeling, so that works out really great for me. I don't know if the camera's picking it up, but this is all like orange and purple. It's really pretty. But that's what works out for me. So the Philippines, I think, the other thing is, if you do run into trouble there, and you don't do anything stupid, you don't pick a fight or whatever, chances are you'll survive it with no significant scars. There's a lot of places you go, you run into some trouble, it might hurt you or cost you significantly. I'm just going to leave that at that. But, the Philippines is one of those easy places to travel, but it's still significantly different than most Western countries. So you're going to get that test factor, right? You're going to eat some balut. You're going to eat some quick. You're going to eat one of those nasty red hot dogs on the street. You might even eat some chicken butt. It's a thing. Chicken intestine, right? You might find yourself standing there at a food cart in the middle of nowhere. What is this? What is this? Let me try that. Let me try that. Let me try that. And you might get sick. Yes, you might get sick. You might get sick everywhere. Funny one to me about that, getting sick, is everybody I've talked to went to the Dominican Republic. They come down with this crazy stomach flu for like 2 or 3 days. Some worse, some less. But seems like a pretty universal thing. But the Philippines, some people get very sick, some people don't get very sick. I can't say I've met anybody who's not gotten sick. See, I love this place. The flowers. They've got this artwork everywhere. But, that's just part of travel, right? When you go to new places, they have new bugs your body's not used to, and you're going to get sick. So that's kind of the how and where I choose places. So I go through and I look for things I want to see, things I want to do. I look for prices and I look for ease, right? I'm not looking to go, I'm not looking for the difficult route. One little side note on that, like I went to Korea last year. I made a visa run from Japan to Korea, and I planned on, I had it open so I could stay as much as I wanted, but I get to Korea. Oh, that's not a good sign. Looks like it might rain. That's like legit rain, not the summer. Not the summer, hi, nice to meet you rain. Or maybe that's fog. Yeah, I hope that's fog. But I got to Korea and none of the mapping programs would work. So you couldn't sort out, you couldn't even find a map of their transit. And I couldn't even sort out like how to get to this hotel without paying. And Uber worked. I think it was Uber or Grab or something worked. But there's those three: Uber, Grab, and Bolt. If you're going to be traveling, just sign up for all three of those. And I usually do it on a secondary phone, a travel phone. And you're going to need all three of those wherever you go. Check this out. But anyway, so Korea, it was so difficult, and you have to download this special app, and that special app gives the Korean government backdoor to everything in your phone, and good on them. But I just got off the first stop after the airport, got a hotel, stayed there for 2 days, and bounced out as fast as I could. 'Cause I'm not going to mess around with BS. And if Korea is so dangerous, I can't use Google Maps, then I probably don't need to be in Korea. It's just my opinion. And I'm kind of finicky, I'm kind of fussy. But again, I always default to the hungry bear, right? What's easy, what's tasty, what's readily available, what's cost effective, right? They're getting ready to ramp up for summer and do the boat tours. And that's kind of how I travel. So what do you pack? What you pack depends on where you're going, how much money, all this, right? Now, I grew up in the 80s. In the 90s, I was learning to backpack. Actually, I guess it was like 90 or 91, I started learning to backpack. And I started wearing the backpack simply because I wanted to go on this hike that was too far for me to do in a day. So what I do, I took basically a school backpack from the 80s that I carried in high school, actually, and I strapped a tent on the bottom of it, threw a sleeping bag in there, and I went backpacking. I didn't have a camp stove, I didn't have a plan, I didn't have anything. I just went out backpacking. And I didn't even know to call it backpacking. Oops. Because I was just hiking, right? Just hiking. I want to get a picture of this statue here. Really beautiful statue. There's all kinds of things like this up and down the promenade here in Triana. It's beautiful. But, I'm sitting there walking down the trail with this pack, and I had no idea. I mean, to cook food at night, I brought some top ramen, a can of tuna, and I had a plumbing blowtorch that I brought, and I pointed at the side of a old World War II Army canteen cup. And that was what I used to cook my food at night, to warm some coffee. And it was just a joke, right? I didn't have a water filter, I didn't have any of that. But then I got into the whole nuts and bolts of backpacking, and you start reading Backpacker magazine, and they're talking about, there was all these 10 essential items, and this and this and that, and it was like this obsession and this constant conversation of what to pack and how to pack and blah blah blah. So fast forward, what, 30 years? And now I'm out here traveling the world, and nobody really talks about packing, because once you get it down, you get it down. But when you're a new person and you're starting to backpack or you're starting to travel, you really should be using a packing list. There's tons and tons of times I can tell you where, I didn't have things that I should have packed, and had I made a list, I probably would have packed. But when you're new, you just kind of make a packing list, go through it, spend a couple weeks on it. And that's if you're a brokey, right? If you're rich, if you've got money to spend and you don't care, you can't just, grab a bag and go. I did that one time. I was searching the internet. Guy said, I don't know anything about travel. I loved that comment, because who is he to say that, right? What does he know? But, there's a big cruise ship. I didn't even notice. Headed over to Corfu, I bet. So, one time I'm drunk. I'm searching the internet. I decided I wanted to go to Hawaii. So I'm in California. Flights are pretty cheap. I find this package deal, but I'm searching dates. And I'm like, wow, it's really cheap if I leave tomorrow morning. It's like 9 o'clock at night. I'm in this hotel, and I'm like, if I leave tomorrow morning, I'm saving like, 60% on my flights. There was some glitch or fluke or whatever. And the next day it went up, and the next day it went up. So I literally called some friends, tried to find somebody to take me to the airport. Finally found somebody I could sucker in to drive me to the airport, because I had to be there. I think the flight was at 6, so I had to be there super early. And, so I'm trying to figure out what to pack, and I say, screw it. I grab like 3 pairs of clean underwear, throw them in a backpack, and I'm off. Literally just a little day pack, 3 pairs of underwear for 2 weeks in Hawaii. And I got there, and I went down, bought a pair of shorts at the little I forgot the name of those stores, the little Hawaiian 7-Elevens. I just went down, bought a pair of shorts, t-shirt, went to the beach. Next day I got up, bought a pair of shorts, t-shirt, and I just rinse and repeat, right? I came home with like 8 pairs of shorts. But that's because I had the money. If you're traveling on a budget, your packing list gets more and more important. And the more accustomed you get to traveling, the packing list gets less and less important. And there's the few items you got to have, and you carry those with you, and you check them, make sure you don't leave those anywhere all the time. And it's just an easy thing, right? Once you do it, once you do it every day or every week or, 5 times a year, packing becomes a second nature thing. But on your first few trips, spend the time, make a packing list, run through ideas in your head. And I'll give you one example. When I went to the Philippines, I think it was February 2019. I can't remember. One of my first trips. Had a really bad allergic reaction. And so I needed some Benadryl. So I go to the pharmacy to get some Benadryl. And I don't know if they were just giving me the Cano price, or if, it's really that expensive. But Benadryl, it was like $3 or $4 a tablet, when it should be like 15 cents a tablet, 20 cents a tablet. And so I bought the Benadryl, I took it, right? But when I went home, my next packing list for every trip to the Philippines, I would go online, go to Amazon, and get a bottle of Benadryl, like 200 tablets for $5. I'd just throw it in the pack, and it would travel with me. I wouldn't, I don't know if I ever used it, to be honest with you, but I had it, right? And it was an easy cost up front, where if I needed it then and there, it was a significant cost. Isn't this just amazing? Sorry, I love this view. And again, Corfu's right over there. That's part of Corfu, but the city, or the island that Corfu's on, the city's over here. And this is just fabulous. And the water here, let me see if the camera will penetrate. The water over here is just spectacular. But so those are little things, right, you add to your packing list. Things like mosquito repellent, things like sunscreen. They're hard to find some places, so you learn to add those to your packing list. Yeah, I don't know if you're seeing how clear that water is, but some of the clearest water I've seen. They're doing some work on the trees right now, but that's what that is. But it's just fabulous. So packing list, make your packing list, think about your activities, think about where you want to go. I usually always try to include one nice shirt and one, nice pair of pants. Always think like, what if somebody really rich invites me to dinner at a really nice place? Do I have something to wear? It's kind of my baseline. And then whatever is appropriate for where I'm going. But I always try to have that one nice set of clothes. And honestly, usually I'll fly in that. It's a whole nother story about when I got upgraded to first class without asking or paying. And I think it had something to do with the way I was dressed. So there's that. It always pays to dress nicely when you're traveling. Things just go smoother. And that's a funny story, maybe I'll tell one day. So that's the Hungry Bear method. That's what to pack. And now let's, real quickly as I walk back, let's talk about where to stay and how to choose your hotel. I've talked about this before, but given the series of videos that we're in, I just wanted to kind of re-hit it. And my theory is I'm all about maximizing every day. I'm not good at maximizing every day, but that's the thought process, right? Is maximize every day I've left on this planet and maximize, every penny I get, right? So I want to spend my money as wisely and as beneficially as possible. I don't want to be buying, $50 worth of vegetables that rot in my fridge, or, what groceries that just sit in the freezer or cabinet forever, right? Pretty much don't buy anything these days that doesn't go in my belly. You can see I'm wearing the same shirt I've worn for years. I don't need to buy a new shirt. It's presentable enough. It's easy to clean, and I don't need to buy a bunch of things, new things. I need to buy things when they wear out, and I need to buy things, I don't need to buy a bunch of frivolous stuff that I'm not going to use. And if you walk around your house, if you're thinking about going expat, you're thinking about going nomad, one of the big things you need to work on is the sell down. I would say do these trips first before you start the sell down, or start the sell down and fund your trips. Because what I'm talking about here is all the things you walk around your house and you haven't used in 2 years, and you probably have no plans to use in the next year. Something neat, something cute, something this, something that. I went on eBay about 6 months too late, but about 4 months before I left America, and I started selling stuff on eBay. And I just put it up there with the first thing I actually didn't even want to sell, but it was just kind of a joke with a friend to prove him wrong. So I had these pocket knives. They were limited edition. They'd just been discontinued by Swiss Army. And they're, a unique size. They're a middle size. They weren't a big pocket knife, weren't small, micro. And I really like that pocket knife. TSA Las Vegas got the last one, jerks. But when I saw they were discontinued, I went out and bought, because I'd usually buy one like every 3 or 5 years, I'd replace it. And so I went out and bought all the ones I could find. I had 2 that were in pristine packages, and I didn't really want to sell them. A friend of mine was urging me to start selling my stuff. He's like, look, just put it on eBay at some obscene price where you couldn't not sell it. Like if somebody handed you walked up with the cash, there's no way you would not sell it. So I put these 2 out there, and they were pristine, right? The boxes were in perfect shape, but I put them out there at this price that I'm like, there's no way anybody in their world would ever spend this on these 2 knives. And holy shit, somebody bought them. Couldn't believe it. Somebody bought them. And so I packed them up. I double bubble wrapped them. I videoed the packing because I was like, paranoid, because I couldn't believe somebody would pay that much for these knives. But he was a collector or something, and he wanted those 2 knives, and he got them. And I got the real lesson from my friend. He's like, just put it up there and see if it sells. And so if you're thinking about going nomad, you're thinking about going expat, one of the first things I would actually do, I didn't even intend to talk about this, is start walking around your house, your apartment, your garage, and look at things and like, am I ever going to use this again? Get on Facebook marketing and sell it there. There's ways to sell there to be safe. Use those practices. Don't just willy-nilly like get yourself in trouble. And then eBay is real easy. Once you learn to ship and you learn that you can have the postal service print the tag for you, it's real simple. I would just package everything up, walk into the post office, they'd scan the code, put the sticker on it, and it would go. I wouldn't even have to pay because I'd leave my money in eBay. So it was really great. But if you're thinking about going nomad, think about start selling your stuff now. It's just an anchor. All that stuff you're not using, you don't use, you won't use, is just an anchor. So it kind of lays into packing and stuff. But where you go, I was trying to get back to hotels. There's one thing I wanted to touch on hotels, right? So I kind of talked about how I pick my destinations, how I pick my locations, my travel methods. It's all the easy bear method. I just look for places I want to go. I look for the best price, and I look for, the best option. And usually I'll be looking at 3 or 4 places, and then I'll go. Hotels, though, I was talking about spending your money wisely and not wasting money. So it cracks me up. I went to this all-inclusive in Mexico, and it's like $300-400 a day depending on their package. And these people, they show up at the all-inclusive and then they go out on these all-day excursions, and I'm like, why would you spend that much money for an all-inclusive if you're going to go out on this excursion all day and not use the all-inclusive, right? It's free food, free drinks, free activities. There's a beach, pools everywhere, right? All kinds of activities. And people are like, nope, see you, bye. We're heading out on this like Jeep adventure. Now me, I would go to the all-inclusive before or after, and then stay at some base rate hotel and do the Jeep adventure out of that. And that's kind of my point about the Philippines, is if it's a rest and recovery day, or the last day before you fly home, yeah, get that nice hotel. In fact, that's one thing I really try to instill in people, is my idea of, look, you're on this long vacation, take a day right before you make that long flight home and just get the nicest hotel you can afford and just lay up in the hotel, walk around the city, the cafe, whatever, and just have a day where it's totally no stress, no pressure, no agenda, and just chill out. The planned chill before you go home, right? It just makes life so much easier, I think, and so much better. It helps wire those memories in deeper so you actually remember your vacation better. It's really an important practice. But if I'm going to, say, Coron, and I'll be out on the boats all day, what do I need? I need a place that's safe, secure, and clean, right? The water here is so clear, too. I don't know if you can kind of see those rocks. But I just need a place that's safe, secure, and clean, and where my, camera's not going to get stolen out of the hotel room. That's all I need. I need a clean shower and a clean bed. So a lot of times I would just book a pension house and then, then book a more expensive place. So keep that budget flexible and not just like, I have this much a day to spend on accommodations. If you have, say you've got $50 a day for accommodations, right? Don't be afraid to spend 20, 20, 20, 100, right? Don't be afraid to, these dogs are so funny. There's a bunch of people there, so I don't want to, but don't be afraid to, sorry, I got caught up in watching the dogs. Don't be afraid to keep that budget flexible and dynamic and, you know, get that really nice hotel, you know, once or twice on your trip, you know, and then say when you're out and about, the other advantages of staying at those less expensive places is you'll meet more people. Generally, I find people in the cheap hotels aren't snobby. You go to some of these hotels and big vacation spots and some of the just snobbiest people. It's funny though, like once you get up into like an executive lounge or something, that snobbery seems to go away and people are, again, so friendly. It's just this weird thing to me, you know, but about meeting people and traveling, that's a whole nother, I could talk for days on that. But, you know, maximize your money, maximize your time, and you're going to maximize your time and experience by not sitting in a hotel room all day watching TV, right? You're going to maximize your time and experience by getting out. This is where the boats come in with the fish in the morning. You're going to maximize your time and experience by getting out, spending time in public, meeting people, talking to people. And see, look at this old anchor here. And then there's a little kittens and a vase. Check out the kittens. They're so cute. By spending time out and about doing things, meeting people. And it's all because you can stay flexible with your budget. Oh, look at the little gray. It's like, what's that guy doing? What's that guy doing? Mama over there doesn't care. She's just like, I'm chilling. I'm tired. I love kittens. They're so cute. But I'm not a crazy cat lady. So I think that's kind of what I wanted to cover. I wanted to cover a little bit about packing, a little bit about where and when to travel, and how to choose your hotels. And I could do a whole series like this on, you know, choosing hotels, about locations, the good and bad, about, you know, the hotel reviews, how to read hotel reviews. You know, there's this whole set of skills you develop that nobody really cares about because they're super specific to you and your agenda and what you're doing. But those are all things you'll learn. Those are all things you'll get used to or not. And those are all things that, you know, you really want to sort out on your own and ask for help when you have a specific question. These are all the guys that go out on the boat tours, and they've got all their signs. It's really cool. You see a little bits of sun starting to, it's getting ready to come over the mountain. Means it's about time for my coffee. So again, I think, let me finish up here. It's been a long rant. But again, I think the Philippines is a great place for that first trip because you're going to have the adversity, you're going to have the distance of travel, and it's going to push you out of your comfort zone to some degree. And if need be, you know, you can change gears and go from, you know, here to there, in the sense that, you know, there's malls that make the Western malls look like crap. I mean, some of the malls there are just fabulous. There's Western food available everywhere, right? There's local food and, you know, all this and this and that, but there's Western food available everywhere. So you can go out, you know, if you're having a hard time adjusting or you're not liking it, you can basically walk into a Western civilization in the Philippines, no problem. That's a new hotel. You know, they should give me a discount because I was staying at the hotel next to them. They were doing construction. I couldn't sleep for like 3 days. But it's a beautiful hotel, right? I love this area. But yeah, so when you're in the Philippines, you know, one of the big advantages of it is you can be in something similar to California very easily. Traffic's even, you know, as bad as LA if you want it to be. You know, you can escape the foreign nature of the country and, you know, find everything you want. It's gotten a lot better too. When I first started going there, like finding certain foods was near impossible. Finding things was, you know, crazy hard. And the funny thing to me, I used to drink Crown and Coke like nonstop, right? I was like 10 in the morning, give me a Crown and Coke guy. And as I travel Europe, nobody has Crown Royal. I found Crown Royal once in the Triana airport at the duty free, and it was an empty box because the pilots bought all the Crown Royal. That's what the lady told me. And that was 2 years ago. I have not, and I'll poke into liquor stores and stuff, and I have not found Crown Royal anywhere in Europe. But it's easy to find in Angeles City. And that kind of cracked me up that, you know, of all the places in the world, Angeles City is the most, it's the easiest to find that product. But yeah, you can tell I need my coffee. Definitely need my coffee. I got about 20 more minutes before the coffee shop opens. So I'm gonna head up to my hotel, grab my bags, and head over to the coffee shop. But it's a beautiful day here in Saranda, and that looks like it's all fog burning off. One thing I'll touch on that's kind of cool is, you know, they have some ruins right there by the bus station when you get off the bus in Saranda. But this, from what I understand, is the ruins of a, you know, what's left of a fortress. And if you know anything about concrete, the fact that this is sitting in salt water, and I believe it's like Roman era concrete. I'm not 100% on that. I'm just going off what somebody told me one time sitting here. But if that really is Roman era concrete and it's sitting in the salt water and it's still holding those rocks so tightly, how impressive is that? And again, same thing here. You know, I don't know the true lineage of this, but it's just impressive to me that this is, yeah, see the sign's gone. But it's just impressive to me that this is still here, still standing. It's just fabulous. Just fabulous. Yeah, those are plants. That's not rebar. Don't get your panties bunched. Looks like a bird's nest or plants, but. And then over, I think it's over there, there's a place called Butrin. I went there before. I've got a video about it, but I'll get down there in the next week or so and check it out again. Should be amazing right now. Spring is breaking here in Saranda, so town is starting to come alive. And I'll tell you, right about now in the summertime, right about now is when this beach starts filling up. So if you're here in the summertime and you want to get a spot on the beach, you better be early, because these beachgoers are serious about getting their sun and serious about getting their spot. And you don't want to be last man to the beach. It's just the way it is. Just the way it is. But right now it's shoulder season. Mornings are still crisp and cool. And it's just beautiful. Just beautiful. It's not the best snorkeling here. There is some fun stuff to see. I've seen a couple octopi in here. And there's some fish that are, I don't know what you call it, but swim higher in the water that are fun to follow and chase. But some of these boat tours, they'll take you out to places that are well worth the snorkeling. So I think I've rambled long enough. I hope you all have a great day. And don't expect more videos like this. I'm going to do one more talking about the greatest travel hack nobody talks about. But these videos are coming to an end, and I'm going to start showing you where I'm at and what I'm doing.